House of Representatives probe 100 billion naira underpayment by NNPC. Valid court order a prerequisite for the release of bank verification number, BVN details. Central Bank tells deposit money banks. And promoting intra-Africa trade takes center stage at ongoing annual meetings of the Africa Import and Export Bank. This is Business Express coming to you from our Abuja studio. I am Musa Abubakar and will be taking you through the day's business. Good to know you're still with us. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has released an amended regulatory framework for bank verification number, BVN operations, and watch list for Nigerian financial system, saying a valid court order is a requirement to have access to customers' BVN. The Apex Bank disclosed this in a circular that was addressed to all banks, switches, mobile money operators, payment solution providers, microfinance banks, and others. It stressed that any request for BVN information must be accompanied with a court order. The circular, which was signed by the Director, Banking and Payment System Department, Mr. Depo Fatukun, takes immediate effect. The House of Representatives has ordered an investigation into the alleged underpayment of over 100 billion naira to the Federation account by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation on account of non-remittance from crude oil sale proceeds. The monthly Federation Account Allocation Committee meeting has been deadlocked lately. The meeting for June failed to hold for the third time, leaving the commissioners for finance in the 36 states disappointed. On Tuesday, the House passed a resolution to investigate the underpayment, specifically asking the NNPC to produce its records on crude oil sales for January to July to the ad hoc committee that will conduct the probe. The House expects the NNPC records to include the volume of crude production within the period, the total sales, how much was utilized as joint venture cash calls, and the exchange rate used in converting dollar to naira before the money was lodged in the Federation account. Now, promoting intra-Africa trade is one being pursued vigorously by the continental body as well as institutions working to remove barriers to trade and improve integration. Speaking on the 25th annual meetings of the Africa Import and Export Bank in Abuja, President of the institution, Benedict Orama, say the continental strategy will ease impediments within the framework of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, CFTA. Leah Katumbabatunde has the report.
With Africa has been a clarion call since the quest for integration began. Breaking barriers to trade and movement is essential as the world has shrunk into a global village. President of the Africa Export-Import Bank, Benedict Orama, says globalization has pulled about 800 million people out of poverty, and the Continental Free Trade Agreement is designed to pull more Africans out of that class.
As a matter of fact, one of the advantages of CFTA is to attract foreign investments, because currently Africa is balkanized. Because Africa is balkanized, some of the markets are not really attractive for any investor because the markets are so narrow. Again, if you look at it from a static sense, the smaller countries will be the ones to fear the most, because if I was a foreign investor trying to come into Africa and you have continental free trade area, where would I like to go first? I will go to the bigger economy.
In facilitating trade, the continental lender is also seeking to build hubs across regions that will serve as one-stop shops, and Nigeria is one of such locations.
We are creating the infrastructure that will help trade to occur. For example, here in Nigeria, we are developing a testing and certification center to make sure that quality issues do not remain a constraint to intra-regional trade, including trade with the Africans in the diaspora.
He said the approach to the intra-African trade is three-pronged: create, connect, and deliver. The annual meetings brings together experts, industry players, policymakers, and investors to see Africa become the preferred investor destination that will translate into positive results. Leah Katungbaba today, NTA News.
Thank you, Leah, for that report. Now, to discuss efforts of the federal government at boosting continental trade and financial activities, we are being joined by Professor Emmanuel Nnadozie from Africa Capacity Building Foundation. He has been with various arms of the African Union at different capacities. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, promoting integration and trade. Has Africa done enough?
I think the glass is half full. There has been some significant progress, but much remains to be done. If you look at where the continent was at independence in the beginning of the 1960s and where it is today, you would see that significant progress has been made. If you take ECOWAS, for example, the West African region, you have a common passport, you have free movement of people, you're almost coming close to having a customs union, and there's talk about monetary integration and common currency. You have the ECOMOG and peace and security areas where significant progress has been made to really stabilize the region. So I would say a lot has been achieved. But given the ambition that was set up from the beginning, one would expect by now that we would have the African Economic Community or the African market integrated marketplace. But we're happy that this is something that is finally coming to pass through the Continental Free Trade Area.
Okay, what particular areas do you think we need, or Africa needs improvement, considering that the different economies we have, they have their strength is not at par? Fostering
integration and making it a reality, especially economic integration, is really what needs to happen. And this is why the Continental Free Trade Area is a significant move in that direction. That 44 countries in March this year saw it fit to sign the agreement is a major achievement. Because the Continental Free Trade Area will deal with a major issue which was being mentioned by Dr. Ben Orama, who is the president of Afreximbank. The issue of market fragmentation, because you have small-sized economies that have different kinds of regimes, whether they are monetary, policy related, and so on and so forth, and that makes business to be difficult. You don't have the market size to attract big investments. And secondly, too, doing business across the continent becomes extremely difficult. If you ask people like Dangote and the rest of them, he will tell you one major issue he faces in going to different countries to do business is that he has to get visas from everywhere. And in some cases, that does not work. So this Continental Free Trade Area is something that is extremely important that has to be done. Now, signing the agreement is one thing. Ratifying it is another thing. And even much more significant or important is implementation of that. And that's an issue that I would like to say a few more words on if you want me to.
Okay, well, what's particularly for Nigeria in this integration and agreement?
Nigeria stands to gain a whole lot from this Continental Free Trade Agreement. First of all, Nigeria was in the forefront championing the negotiations, and rightfully so. Secondly, Nigeria has a market size of nearly 200 million people. The Continental Free Trade Area will have a market size of about 1.2 billion people. So if you look at that and you, let's say you're manufacturing something and you're selling to 200 million people, and suddenly you can sell it to 1.2 billion people, I think if you're a businessman or an entrepreneur or a woman, you will find that this is extremely attractive. Okay. Secondly, Nigeria has been talking about economic transformation and industrialization for many, many years. Yes. And that has not really happened at the pace it should happen. And we expect that this, joining and signing this free trade agreement would really propel this and make it a reality, so that because manufacturing and value-added products will be things that have to be exported to other countries. And thirdly, too, if this thing becomes a reality, Nigerian companies can now be able to invest anywhere in the continent and be able to attract major investors from outside, so that this can propel growth and create jobs for the Nigerian young people.
Okay, let's look at barriers to trade.
Yes.
What will the impact be like when these barriers are removed?
It will mean that goods can move freely. It means that every country will now make sure that it has the productive capacity and the competitiveness to be able to benefit from the opportunity. That is what it will mean. It will also mean that people can move freely as well, because when goods move, things can move. It also means that there will be more exchange of ideas and innovation. Some of those things that have been discovered or done somewhere else can easily be replicated in many other places. But for Nigeria, my concern is just like the country spearheaded the negotiations but did not sign the agreement because there was need for internal consultation of the major stakeholders, which are completely endorsed. But it was embarrassing that the country champions the free trade agreement, and when it comes to signing it, it was absent. So I'm hoping that this well-intended a consultation should be wrapped up fairly quickly, so that you can provide this opportunity for Nigeria businessmen and women. But my worry now is whether or not the country has the mechanisms in place so that our private sector can effectively benefit from this opportunity. What am I talking about? There are about three things or four things that are necessary for countries to benefit from the Continental Free Trade Area. One is that they have to have a framework or mechanism in place. Continental Free Trade Area, Secretariat mechanism, whatever. That has to be established, because its role will be to make sure that everybody knows what this is about and people can get information. The second thing is that the private sector has to be ready to capitalize upon this. And I'm not sure the Nigerian private sector is ready in that regard, both in terms of being well informed and preparing themselves to compete in the continent. And thirdly, but not the least, is the policy dimension. That is the public sector, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and related, whether at the state level or at the national level, whether they do have the capacity to be able to really propel this agenda and make sure that Nigeria responds to it favorably.
Now, has Africa done enough in building financial institutions and funding infrastructure?
Africa has come a whole lot, from the time, as I mentioned, many countries gained independence. But of course, as in any other situation, a lot can still be done. Because when you look at the institutions that are existing at the continental level or at the country level, you will see that a lot of them, new ones have been created. Those that have been there are waxing stronger. And I mentioned, for example, Development Bank, I'm sorry, and the Afrexim Bank is another example. And almost every region has its own development bank. And a lot of them are investing in infrastructure, whether it's the Southern African Development Bank or the ECOWAS Development Bank. All of them are investing in that. And there are also increased number of operators in the private banking systems. The only thing is that a lot of them have not really invested as much as they should in developing infrastructure for understandable reasons. But tapping into various sources domestic, international, multilateral, as well as using the mechanisms of public-private partnerships and other innovative financing mechanisms.
Okay.
I think these are things that can be used.
Okay, you're currently heading the Africa Capacity Building Foundation.
Yes.
And can you briefly tell us the role of the foundation in building trade and how is it different?
Well, one thing that we're doing now is to make sure that countries have the capacity to implement the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Because, as I said before, 49 of them have signed, 6 have ratified as we speak. We need 22 to ratify for it to become effective. So we also joined the African Union and the African Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, ECA, to continue to advocate for countries to ratify. But more importantly is after ratifying, the countries then have to make sure that they implement and they benefit from it. This is where we come in. We're working with governments and we will soon engage the Nigerian government to say, how can we help you build the capacity, human capital, the human capacity, as well as institutional capacity that will help Nigerian businessmen and women to take advantage of this opportunity. Okay. So these are the things that we're going to be doing from countries that will require our support, as we have done since the last 27 years.
Okay, thank you for your contribution, Professor Emmanuel Naduze.
Thank you.
How are commodity prices playing out in the country and across the world? Let's take a look at graphic summary. Now, the Nigerian stock market cancelled the gain recorded on Monday to close on a negative note on Tuesday. Let's join Bosede Eva for a look at figures from the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
The all-share index depreciated by 0.60%. The total volume traded dropped to 230 million shares worth 3.76 billion naira, traded in 4,043 deals. Fort Oil recorded the highest price gain of 9.94%. It was followed by Custodian and Unity Bank. On the other hand, Mutual Benefits led the losers chart by 9.09%.
We're now being joined in the studio by CD Idris, one of our regulars on the program, to discuss the capital market. You're welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, the market has been mostly bearish in the past few months. Do you think that there is need for investors to trade with caution?
Well, this bearish trend actually have started since March, and then it has persisted till date. Well, the reasons why we're having this bearish trend, I believe, mostly as a result of a political risk, and then foreign investors who are taking off their investment out of the country, mostly based on the development in the developed economies. You know, the FOMC recently hiked its rate by 0.25%, and you know, it's a risk-free investment. So most of the fund managers who have their monies here are taking back their investment, especially because of the political risk, which is...
So should they trade with caution?
Yeah, well, it's a good thing. One, trades with caution, you understand, so that you don't get your hands burned. That's where these brokers come in. They'll guide you on the right investments to carry on.
Okay, let's look at some figures on Tuesday. Total volume of 213 million shares traded shows momentum is relenting.
Yeah.
Even today's indices are mostly negative. What is your view? Do you foresee a continuous drop?
Well, we might see that a little bit towards next week probably, but we're likely to see a rebound very soon now that we're expecting the Q2 results to trickle in, especially with the companies who are likely to pay interim dividends. So I believe investors, it's really a right time for some of the investors who are key players in the market, to take advantage of the low valuations in the market. There are a lot of blue chip companies whose prices are actually low now, and then considering the yield that are likely to come from buying low now, it's a good time for investors to look at stocks, especially blue chips, the ones that are paying interim dividends, and key into them.
Okay, the financial sector seems to be leading other sectors. Why is that?
Well, it's the heart of the economy. Okay. There's basically nothing you can do without the financial sector. Okay. So that's why you find other sectors affected directly or indirectly by everything that happens in the financial sector. So it's really the mover of the economy. Without finance, there's basically virtually nothing much can be done without financing.
Okay. Recently, the Nigerian Stock Exchange suspended like 7 insurance stocks. Is it a positive thing for the market?
Yeah, it's a positive thing. I think this goes a long way in increasing the confidence of investors in the market by ensuring that these issuers who are listed in the company follow due process, rules and regulations that are guiding the trading activities in the market. It's a good thing that the exchange is, hitting the hammer on people who are the companies who are lagging in their responsibilities.
Also, what are we likely to see in days to come?
We're likely to see some positive movements really in days to come, because most of the companies, like I said earlier, they are likely to bring out their audited results. They are going to be giving out dividends, and then the prices are already low, they're undervalued. So investors can take advantage of these low valuations and key into them and get some dividends.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sidi Idris, for your contribution.
My pleasure.
Thank you. The interbank foreign exchange market has received the sum of $210 million from the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to meet customers' requests in various segments of the market. In its determination to meet the customers' needs in the sundry markets of the market, the CBN offered $100 million to authorized dealers in the wholesale segment of the market on Tuesday, July 10, 2018. The figures also indicate that customers needing foreign exchange for invisible such as tuition fees, medical payments and basic travel allowance, among others, were also allocated the sum of $55 million. The bank's acting director, Corporate Communications Department, Mr. Isaac Okorafor, assured Nigerians that the bank will continue to intervene in the interbank foreign exchange market in line with its pledge to sustain liquidity in the market and maintain stability. According to Mr. Okorafor, the CBN will not back on its promise to manage the forex with a view to reducing the country's import bills and halting depletion of its foreign reserves. Away from stocks in Nigeria, let's look at how global stocks are traded. We wrap up with a look at how major currencies around the world are trading this Monday. That concludes our Business Express for today. Thanks for watching. I am Musa Abubakar.